Boom.
All right, boys, welcome back. Good to see your smiling faces on another episode of BGO Blind Pig. Brought
You
to
should
you
see us
courtesy.
if we actually win. Then we're really smiling.
That's right. Well, we did it 4 weeks in a row. Actually, we missed 2. See, we got to take advantage of our opportunities when we get them. They're not.
Yep.
But courtesy of the bgobsession.com. Quick introductions. Top left today is Paul, known as Canadian Hog. Bottom left is Boone. He's also known as John. Bottom right is Neo. He's known as Bob. Top right is Ohm, also known as Mark, and I am Derek. On the board, I hail as Silent Threat. All right, boys. So I don't know that we should really, I don't even know if I can have some wonderful discussion to have beforehand that we debate that Taylor Heineke is the future or Garrett Gilbert deserves a long-term deal now because he came and showed up. But I think
he didn't test positive.
He didn't test positive. I think I mean, we can jump right into it. I think we did about as good as you can expect. I think we left some stuff on the field, but to be honest with you, I don't know how much more you can really look at a game going into what we went into yesterday and have any kind of real major hope that there was going to be a different outcome. I'm open to hearing if one of you guys can prove me wrong on that one, but I'm not.
John's raring to go.
Well, I mean, I think we were all pleasantly surprised at the start. The defense was forcing turnovers and we were scoring off of turnovers. And I think probably all of us also were looking at that going, this never lasts. We don't get that many starts like that. But, when the ball is bouncing off a receiver's heel into your arms, you just know you're not going to get those kind of breaks all night long. And I said it on Twitter, even though despite everything, we were still in the second half, there was still a moment there where we were one score down and anything could happen. You just can't have as many players go to IR, like critical players go to IR. And then have COVID on top of that, decimate your team and expect, as a fan, you should not expect to go into a hostile environment or even in a home environment and win that game. You just shouldn't have that expectation. And so for any people that got sucked into expecting a win, shame on us, you can only do so much. And I don't have a problem with Gilbert. I'm not sure why they decided to have him be a passing threat for most of the game. Throwing downfield. I think Gilbert threw downfield more than most of our other quarterbacks have. So I'm not really quite sure what Turner was thinking there, because I didn't think he was very accurate. He played, I give him credit, just to be able to not vomit or have, a bowel movement in the game and be able to run some plays. He seemed to know the plays that they ran, but that's different from having him throwing downfield, in that kind of a game. That's probably the only criticism I had. And then I also said in the thread today, the Studs and Duds thread, that Canadian Hog does a great job on every week. I mentioned that interception, the sack that he took, that Gilbert took at the end of the first half, that was like a benchable mistake. If there was someone else we could put in the game. So I thought that, I don't care if that has nothing to do with being, in that position. Every quarterback knows you got to get rid of the ball in that situation. And not that would have made a difference, but it might've made a difference. And so that was my biggest beef there. And I also didn't like the fourth down call in the second half where we went for it instead of trying a long field goal. I know it was a little wet and maybe that factored into it, but I thought our chances of kicking a long field goal are a lot higher than Gilbert throwing into triple coverage and making some big play. So anyway, that's what I got. I think we were doomed from the outset, unfortunately.
I think there are a lot of factors there, and I'm not going to soliloquize, but Garrett Gilbert to me did everything he could possibly do in a job audition. I think part of the reason he's going down the field is the same reason that Taylor Heineke threw his body at the pylon against Tampa Bay. I think he was playing he was going to play his balls to the wall as he could and try to make things happen. This is his shot, right? This might have been his last shot on an NFL field. So I really can't fault him much. There were plays that could have been made. The Terry McLaurin deep ball in the first half that we end up getting the field goal to go up 10-0. That ball's 5 yards underthrown. If it's out in front of him, it's a touchdown. We're up 14-0. And, who knows, maybe the game feels a little different. But overall, I think Philadelphia, towards the end of the game, in the second half, Gilbert's all of a sudden starting to throw downfield with some authority a little bit more. I think Philly kind of went into a defensive shell a little bit and we're keeping everything in front at that point, and he took advantage of what was there. I can't really fault him. And I know there's been criticism of the play calling because that's something that one does these days, is complain about Scott Turner. I don't. I think he's doing the very best he can dealing with a real shorthand. He knows he's got a quarterback with nothing else with a strong arm. He's got Gibson, who was apparently limping from the first series on, right? He messed up his toe on the first series. He's got one hand tied behind his back. I think he's trying to make anything happen that he possibly can. I really have no problem with what they dealt with on offense. The only thing that surprised me about this game was, and it probably shouldn't be a surprise given all the missing bodies, but I didn't think we'd get gashed for 500 yards against the Eagles. Yeah, they're a strong running team. They got a great scheme. We were so undisciplined and gap disciplined. I know you all saw the same thing. Jack Del Rio's trying to coordinate a defense. He doesn't know who's going to play.
Right.
So we had people missing assignments and blowing gaps all the time, which is why they ran for, 200 and some yards against us.
And we had guys coming off of COVID.
Right.
I mean, people are like, oh, they're negative for COVID. Well, they had COVID. They may not have been on the ventilator, but they had COVID. And I mean, I'm telling you right now, anyone who's had COVID will tell you it takes it out of you. Even if you don't have major, the classic symptoms. I think people ignore that, like Montez Sweat. I mean, the guy's out there. I mean, who knows?
You could see on the offset he was rusty. He just looked slow.
Yeah.
He looked slow off the ball. He looked.
And I'll
slow
say
in
it.
recovery.
I'll say it, and then I'm going to shut up. But I watched the replay today. I didn't get to watch it live last night, but I watched it today. I counted at least 4 times where Montez was not where he was supposed to be. He went way upfield and left a gap. He crashed down against the run and left the end open, didn't seal it. He did not look like a guy who had spent the last 6 weeks studying the playbook. I was a little disappointed in that.
Go ahead, Derek.
He definitely looked like somebody who had missed 6 weeks worth of practice.
Mhm.
I think it could have just been a timing thing. He knows the playbook. I don't think he needs to spend 6 weeks in the playbook.
Perhaps, but those are some of the same mistakes that he was being criticized before, as was Chase Young.
And that's
the
fair.
He
season.
knew the playbook at the beginning of the season, Mark. He's making choices, and that's probably more disturbing than not knowing the playbook.
And I'm giving him a break because he hasn't played and he's got,
Right.
broken. I'm just saying, but it jumped out at me that the man was not where he was supposed to be. And he wasn't the only one. A lot of people
Right.
were out of position.
So I'm gonna offer this caveat before I go where Mark said a lot of people were gonna go and he wasn't gonna go. And the caveat is this: we have no clue what it's looked like in Ashburn for the last 11
5
days.
days.
My guess is it's been something of a ghost town, and Del Rio and Turner have been trying to install game plans by iPad with guys on Zoom meetings. There hasn't been much in the way of a walkthrough. And I don't care what level you play at. If the other team is practicing live and in person and you're doing it by Zoom meeting and none of your guys are hitting the weight room and who knows what they're getting for nutrition and who knows how many of them have had symptoms this week, as John pointed out, and when they ended up gassed during the game, right? Because if you've had COVID or you've known anybody that's had COVID, you know good and well that even minor cases leave you in weird places immediately coming out of it. And in some cases for a while coming out of it, even mild cases. So with that caveat, I'm going to say this. This is the second week in a row I've watched our offense leave the other team's best pass rusher one-on-one consistently. And I don't freaking understand it. I do not understand how you don't game plan better for Micah Parsons last week. And then for Fletcher Cox this week, having watched Micah Parsons cut us to pieces last week. I don't understand how you leave Sam Cosmi coming off how many weeks on IR and COVID, how you leave him one-on-one with Fletcher Cox, play after play after play. Okay, maybe you do it a couple of times. Maybe. Then you start calling plays where backs and tight ends chip this guy coming out of the backfield. I think I saw somebody chip Fletcher Cox once. I don't understand that, especially when you've got a quarterback that's got 5 days in the playbook. And then you turn around and call, like, oh, I'm sorry, Derrick, I know I'm stealing your thunder, and Mark can guess where I'm fixing to go. You call empty backfield when you know Fletcher Cox is owning your guys and they're lined up in a formation that is going to leave them one-on-one. I don't get it. I don't understand this. You know, I get the running game's not working. I get that Philadelphia came out and went, Antonio Gibson is the biggest problem on this field. We're going to take Antonio Gibson away, and we're going to make a guy with 5 days in the playbook beat us. I'd have done the same blessed thing. If I'd been the Philadelphia defensive coordinator, I'd have put 8 guys in the box, and I'd have dared Washington to throw the football all night. And I'd have given it to them all night long. No matter what they did, I'd have given it to them all night long. That's what they did. And you know what? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. And I don't feel like Scott Turner came to the game prepared for that game plan. And I don't understand why he didn't. I don't know what he makes in a year, but it's a hell of a lot more than I made. And I sat here in this chair watching that monitor, screaming with Derrick most of the night about why the hell we're leaving Fletcher Cox in single man-on-man, and why in the world we're not doing anything about it. You know, Gilbert's numbers aren't horrible. He had 20 completions. 11 of those completions went to Gibson, Bates, and tight end
Ricky Seals.
Jones.
Seals Jones. Sorry, there's just too many syllables there for me to keep that one straight. I need simple like Bates. But 11 of 20 went to those guys. What that tells me is, by and large, he's having to come back to the guys around scrimmage, or he's under pressure and he's looking to get rid of it in a hurry. And we didn't have an answer for it. And again, with the caveat that, what do you do, right? My guess is Gilbert was introducing himself to guys in the huddle. Hi, I'm Gilbert. I'm your quarterback for tonight. I'll be the guy calling plays and throwing you the ball. Nice to meet you. Great to, actually hook up. So it's tough. It's really tough, but I didn't see any adjustments. And I guess that's my frustration factor. At halftime, we knew what Philadelphia was going to do. And what'd we do in the second half?
We couldn't convert third downs. That was really the biggest thing in this game, because we lost a time of possession battle. It was not great in the first half, but it was really bad in the second half. And the reason I'm focusing on the third down conversion rate, which was well below 50% for us, is that our defense was on the field, way too many times in a scenario where you don't want your defense on the field way too many times. And that's why I was criticizing Turner with all the downfield passing, because we don't need a 25-yard completion. We need an 8-yard completion to keep the drive alive. And he did that multiple times with a guy who, he has a strong arm, but he wasn't very accurate. And that's not, it's one game, but I just don't understand the mindset there. And I want to say one more thing, and then I'll give it up to Paul here to get some comments from him. Why do you go with a guy like Gilbert? Why do you bring him in? I know they had connections in Carolina, but you've got Shermer on your team, who's familiar with the offense. He's been watching, and I don't understand that. And it's not that maybe Gilbert's the better quarterback, but then the question becomes, then why the hell have you had him as your third quarterback and then you bring someone in and plug him in there? That makes no sense whatsoever.
I didn't check the depth chart last night. Was Shermer the second guy on the depth chart, or was he inactive?
No, he was active. It was Gilbert and Shermer. Ta'amu wasn't even active. So Paul, I'll let you respond, and then I'm not
saying it would have been a different outcome. I just don't understand the
logic. I agree.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. The one thing I will say in regards to that is, regardless of who the guy was that we decided to start, whether it's Gilbert, whether it's Shermer, whoever it is, I don't necessarily think we were going to see much in terms of a sizable difference in terms of overall performance on the night. That all being said, one of the most frustrating things for me about last night, and again, I don't want to be too critical of the team because I had very low expectations for last night. I thought they did an admirable job considering the circumstances and they were dealing with and the cards that were dealt to them. But the frustrating thing for me last night was we had a small glimmer of hope in the second quarter. I mean, we pounced on Philadelphia early. It was 10-0. I think Philadelphia got a little sideswipe there. We caught them off guard. And at 10-0, the thing that I kept thinking was, if we can somehow just get this to 17, it might make them just start pressing a little bit more over on the other side. And we had some opportunities. The defense repeatedly was getting us the ball back, and we had 2 straight drives in the second quarter where we were in third and makeable situations. There was one situation where we had 3rd and 2. We decided to throw that short pattern to McLaurin. The ball was late. We ended up punting. They go downfield. They get the field goal. They make it 10-3. We get the ball back, 3rd and 1. I think we took like literally 59 seconds off the clock. We punted right back to them. They go down the field. They score again. And the game's essentially over at that point. It literally felt like we were walking over a cliff at that point. So the frustrating thing for me was we had some third and very, very makeable situations in that second quarter, and we just could not find an answer at a very, very critical juncture in the game. And I know we were shorthanded significantly in that game, but we let them stick around, and the wheels fell off really, really quickly afterwards.
Yeah. That's
So
about
real
it.
quick, I'm gonna echo Paul's sentiment. Everything I'm gonna say the next however long I go is understanding that even if things had been done the way I had hoped and that I'm gonna reflect on, chances are the outcome of the game doesn't change. And I understand that. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like we were the better team and we should have won. But my concern, and I'm gonna go the other direction also, Bob, it's why did we let Goddard just destroy us for a quarter and a half? He had 100 yards receiving in the first half. Yeah, we slowed him down in the second half, but that's because they started to run the football and they were destroying us at the line of scrimmage. Offensively, you have Devontae Smith, you have Goddard, and you have Hurts. Those are the 3 guys you got to focus on. You cannot let Goddard beat you. And he manhandled us back into that game. The reason they got back into that game is because of Goddard. If he doesn't have Butterfingers, then we're probably down 21-10 at one point.
And Jalen Hurts threw the ball really well. I mean, which is not his norm necessarily, but last night he threw some incredible passes.
And the other caveat, and I will say it, Jeremy Reeves played that ball perfectly. He just got flat-footed on the jump and he mistimed it. Yep. He was in position. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10 that ball's incomplete. Picked. He got awkward. He did not get a good vault. So Goddard was able to high point him and he wasn't able to make a play on it. So there are plays like that. And that was a big play. But my concern is how after the second time he burns you, how do you let him keep doing it? Why, and maybe the answer is the fact that this is where you miss Cam Curl. Cam Curl's not in the game, and this is where you see the major deficiency.
Derek, I don't think we were manning up. What I would have liked to have seen was it was clear that Philly was targeting Goddard, and all I kept seeing was he's just running into open zones because we got guys like at the beginning of the season who don't know where they're supposed to be or who they're supposed to cover.
Right.
We could have gone to some sort of hybrid and put anybody, put Jamin Davis on him, just do something like the old box and one from basketball.
The ability over the last 5 weeks to cover tight ends man to man. He's done it multiple times.
We did not make that adjustment. I was frustrated with that too.
Now to switch to the other side, and I'm going to echo Bob's sentiment here, is Turner. look, I feel like Turner called the same game plan for Gilbert that he would have called if it was Heineke or Allen. And that's not okay. Like, and I mean that, yeah, that's a lot for me, you know, drunk fat guy watching it on my TV at home, and I'm an armchair quarterback. But at the same time, why is it so obvious that we can see that a guy like Gilbert is not going to be effective in the same offense as a guy like Heineke? We're still running all of these jet sweep motions, and Philly's laughing at us because they know that we're not going to do anything with it. The one time we handed it off to DeAndre Carter, he broke it for 30, and we got called for a holding penalty. And they never did it again. Like,
No, that was was that the holding penalty, or was that Sadiq Charles with the very questionable
It was
yeah,
Charles.
blindside block down
blindside block? Yeah,
That
which
was not-
frankly I thought was
That was just a block, man.
borderline. Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
I thought that was a borderline call at best.
So here's what it seems like. Scott Turner is he gets gun shy if he's not confident in something, which I can understand. But the throw last week, and I will come back to it, the throw that was intercepted last week that should have been a screen pass to DeAndre Carter would have been a big play. Guess how you mitigate a pass rush? You throw screens. Why don't we see that formation against a team like Philly?
They
got
were
slay.
trying to dink and dunk early. They were trying to throw in that, you know, just
Right.
in that empty area behind the lineman early, but he couldn't. He wasn't accurate. And I think that's part of the problem. People are like roll him out. Why weren't they rolling him out? Well, he couldn't. He wasn't very accurate.
He
Even
couldn't
in
get the edge. He also couldn't get the edge. The edges weren't there, and I get that. But what I'm talking about, and I'm not talking about major timing plays. What I'm talking about is 3-step drop, single read. If it's not there, you're throw it away. You know what I'm saying? Or a 3-step drop, it will be there because it's a bubble screen to McLaurin. That throw to McLaurin, the play was the right call. It was perfect. If it was Heineke, because Heineke's run that play 1,000 times in practice. The timing's there. He knows the read. He knows McLaurin. Gilbert hesitated because he had to see McLaurin open. And once he flashed, by the time he pulled the trigger, it was too late. The linebacker had time to cover.
It is a fair thing to say, though, and I think even the idiot Sanchez made this observation. It is really hard to throw on time if you're Gilbert when you've never played with these guys before.
No,
I agree.
You know, it's not like if when you're practicing with them, you kind of know how they play. You get some kind of timing. I mean, it's pretty tough to make yourself let the ball go early when you've never thrown to these receivers before.
and when you're installing the offense by Zoom.
And I
Yes.
agree. And that's the point, is why are we asking him to do it? You know what I'm saying? Like,
It did feel like we were pretending that we weren't down half of our offense. It did feel that
or
way.
two quarterbacks. Like we had to sign the guy off the street. And the other, and I'm going to double down on what you said, John. Jordan Ta'amu has been around this team all season. If you watch the way he plays, he is Heineke light. Like he can play the same type of offense that Heineke can play. He's slippery. He's mobile. He doesn't have the biggest arm. If you're going to plug and play, put somebody in there that can still run the same offense you've been running for 15 weeks. You know what I'm saying? I wonder how much threw the offensive line off, because now they've got a guy, instead of being able to bail you out if you get beat a little bit and the ball's going to come out on time, they're having to block for an extra second, and it's a bigger target in the backfield. It's a guy who's going to try to go downfield.
Which in a way makes the offensive line look pretty good, actually. I mean, we had one penalty on the offensive line last night.
Was it the blindside block?
And it was the blindside block on Charles that all of us think may very well have been bullshit. So I felt like the offensive line actually played fairly good. I mean, all things considered, I'm raging on what happened with Cox, but for the most part, they played fairly well with the hand they were dealt.
On pass pro, we didn't get much done against the run. I mean, I don't know if you guys were seeing it too, but Philly did exactly what all of us would have done against us. They were jumping all that short stuff. They're not going to make it easy for a quarterback. But before I lose the thought, we were talking about who played. I was wondering why Gilbert got the start too. And if we start from the premise that our coaching staff aren't all raving idiots, which I hope we don't really think they are, they must have seen something in the other two guys that didn't give them a whole lot of confidence. And whatever they saw in Gilbert, they decided to go with him. I would like to have seen us go with an option that would be able to do some damage with his legs.
Yes.
Gilbert was not going to do that. He just wasn't going to do that. He sort of runs like Tom Brady, not real fast. It would have been nice to have a guy who can make some shit happen, shake it up with his legs and get us a few first downs, because we were pretty predictable. They knew exactly where Gilbert was going to be, when he's going to take his drop. He's not moving around. I'll give him some credit. He stood in there. He wasn't afraid to get his uniform dirty, and he did. But it would have been nice to see a guy who could take off and get us 2 or 3 first downs. I still don't think it would have mattered. I think Philly could have pretty much had their way with us. If they had needed to score more in that game against our depleted defense, they would have. I think they kind of let the air out of the ball and backed off and played a shell in the second half until they needed that next touchdown, and they went and got it. We were watching an NFL team against we were the third quarter or the fourth quarter of the third preseason game. That's who we were fielding.
I'll tell you the other reason I hated them signing a quarterback in the week that he's going to start also another team's practice squad. When you have 2 guys already here, I hate it because I don't like the message that it sends, not to make too much of it, but I don't like the message it sends that, hey, we've had you on our roster and we've been telling you that we believe in you and we've been
And
coaching
you've been grinding, you've been working.
But then when the push comes to shove, we're going to pull some guy that we knew from Carolina in because he's got a big arm. Well, I mean,
Those are legit questions to ask.
I just don't like it. I didn't
Rivera
like
and
it.
Turner.
I don't doubt what you said as far as it might not have made a bit of difference. And one thing I wanted to mention, because I thought about it last night, because I was just stunned at some of the passing plays we were calling. And I think maybe they just thought we can't play conservative and win this game. Like we're not gonna win the game. We have to take chances, even though it's not ideal. That's the only explanation I can come up with some of the. It's either that or Turner is one of these OCs who it's my system and it doesn't matter who's in there. We're going to run the system unless maybe that's his mindset, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that.
I don't buy that. I think Philly was playing us to force us to make long sustained drives. They weren't going to give us the deep stuff. I think they knew it, and I think we knew it. I think he knew we weren't going to be able to sustain 80-yard, 12-play drives and execute the way you have to execute like that with a guy who doesn't even know everyone's name yet. I think that's why we kept going downfield trying to make big plays.
We missed McKissick last night. This may be the biggest. This may be.
Well, we're going to miss him the rest of the season because he's done.
No, is he? I missed that.
He got put on
him
IR
down
late yesterday.
Oh, awesome. Well, McKissick was. I just felt like this was one of those games where we were crying for McKissick and his hands out of the backfield. Not that Gibson didn't play fairly well in that role. I mean, he did play pretty well in that role, but when you only have one guy to do everything, and we really kind of only had one guy to do everything. I mean, they put Patterson in there for a couple of plays, they put Williams in there for a couple of plays, but for the most part, they were relying on Gibson last night, and you need the fresh legs. You need the change of pace. And McKissick is
he had 1.7 yards per carry last night, which is not very good.
It's not Gibson
good.
So Bob, in relation to what you're just alluding to with Antonio Gibson, it was a point that I brought up today in regards to him. I'm starting to have a few too many concerns in regards to Antonio Gibson. We're seeing for the most part that without the complementary skills of a guy like McKissick, to me, he starts to seem just more like Guy. He doesn't remind me of the type of player who can carry the load for 4 quarters. He shows flashes of brilliance, but then he has his brain fart moments. He's obviously had a fumbling issue for the most part this year. And over and above all that, he's got a durability issues, and he's had a durability issue towards the end of last year and through this year as well. I know last night they were making mention that he wasn't quite right. I'm starting to wonder if running back does not become a very serious need for this team moving forward. I feel like Antonio Gibson is the type of player that would thrive in a situation where he has another complementary hammer that can carry the load in big moments. alongside him. I don't know what you guys think
I
about
think
that.
that's 100% correct, Paul. I've had the same thought about him. He reminds me a little bit of Kelvin Bryant from back in the day.
Mhm.
He's capable of making big plays in flashes. He can be dominant. I also don't think he's the guy that's going to hold up at 20 or 25 carries a game and consistently get you those 4 yards. I think he's pretty good out of the backfield. I think he's an ideal third down back. I would like to have a bit bigger back who can gets the tough yardage between the line, between the hash, and hold on to the rock and all that. I don't think he's a starting full-time running back in the NFL. I think he's a platoon guy.
John, I'm with you, buddy.
I'm going to push back
You're
a
reading
little
my
bit.
mind, brother.
He's a tough son of a bitch, and you guys are. I don't disagree. He
I'm not
needs help.
questioning his toughness, John. I'm questioning his ability to hold up physically.
Yeah, well, he's been the only running back who has held up the last 2 seasons. He's playing hurt. It's like calling Morgan Moses brittle. Well, Moses played every damn game. Even if he was hurt. I mean, I think we're getting a little blinded by the fact that we've got our O-line is beat up. All of our other, we don't have any other running backs. I wish they had given Jarrett Patterson more. He fumbled last night, but he played well. He had a couple 5-yard rushes, or he averaged 5 yards. He looked like he was starting to get it last night. And the other guy, Williams, I think it is, looked pretty decent. I wish they had spelled him more. The whole first quarter was running Antonio Gibson into that defensive line.
Run or pass. That's where he caught most of his balls.
I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you at all, Paul. I'd have no problem. I think we do need more help, because McKissick is the guy that can't stay on the field. If we're being honest, it's not Gibson, but he needs some help. And if you're going to run a guy 10 times in the first quarter, or whatever it was, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, who are you going to be rushing in the second half? Because he's just like everyone else. He's only got so much energy. So I'm not as far down that path as you guys are.
Do you see him as a 20 carry a game running back in the NFL?
I don't need him to be a 20 carry a game running back.
I think it could be a 15 carry every single game running
That's
back.
what I'm saying too. I want to see him as a platoon guy. I think he's exceedingly dangerous in long yardage situations out of the backfield as a potential pass catcher. I'm not seeing him, and I'd like to be wrong. I'm not seeing him hold up physically as a starting first down running back in the NFL over any length of time.
But
well, I don't know that guy exists anymore the way in the current NFL.
Derrick Henry, he's the only
Derrick
one.
Henry is currently out injured.
Right. I mean, we
He was
talked like
out
that.
last year, injured.
Name a top tier running back who's played 16 games in the last 3 years.
All of those points are well
rare.
taken. All those points are well taken, but it's not just that, because Paul was talking about it, right? It's not just the durability thing. It's playing nicked. It's losing concentration. We've talked about this ad nauseum.
Damn
Fumbling the ball, going out of bounds. It's just I'd like to see him grow. Maybe he comes back next year and shuts me the hell up like our linebacker did this year and proved me wrong. But
We do need
sorry,
it.
I forgot the name, but
that's
we
part of the
do.
problem.
We need a hammer, and we
Turner
thought we had
likes
that.
these hybrid running backs that can catch the ball as well as they can run. And what we need is somebody that can pound it, so that when we need someone to pound it, it doesn't always have to be Antonio Gibson.
Bingo.
Jarrett Patterson is not going to be that guy. I'm sorry, at 5'7" or whatever he is and 180 pounds, he's not going to be that guy.
See, I think Gibson's role is the opposite. I think Gibson's a first and second down guy. But here's the thing that I want to see from them, and it never makes sense, is one of the 2 or 3 guys gets going a little bit and they pull him off the field. You know what I mean? How many times we see McKissick have a big play and then he's on the sideline watching Gibson run into a wall? You know, and I wonder if that's got a lot to do with it. I want to see that rhythm a little bit. And if ride the hot hand, we have the luxury when McKissick's healthy. But I think we need to break down the idea of these cast roles, that McKissick's a third down guy. I've seen McKissick tear off some of the best runs of the season.
Yeah.
And he's done it on first down. Okay. So let's forget if we're going to be Riverboat Ron and going for it on fourth down consistently, throw the first, second, third down back out the window and get a guy on the field who's going to make a play. And if Gibson's that guy at the right time, then he is.
I think we almost need to do something like it's been years since anybody did it, and I'm trying to think of a great example. And I don't know, maybe the two-headed monster under Kosar or under Schottenheimer in Cleveland back in the day, right? Ernest Biner and Mack, when they used to take whole drives, right? And they'd swap out drives. And this game, Mack
The
would get
Giants.
2 out every 3 drives, and Biner would get the 3rd drive. And then the next game, Biner would play 2 out every 3 drives, and Mack would get the 3rd drive. And so by the end of the season, you had 2 guys that were pushing 1,000 yards, but you also had 2 guys that were relatively fresh, because the reality is they'd only played half the season.
The Giants did it with Tiki Barber and Ron Dane. Thunder and Lightning. Remember that?
You're right. Yeah, that's another
And-
good
and
example.
That was I don't even know that I need that, because if you can get both of them consistently playing, then you don't give away what you're doing. In one point on
I think it gets back to that riding a hot hand thing, man. And you got a guy that's ripping off 6 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards. And after 3 carries, he's standing on the sideline, and you're watching somebody else who's trying
Keep
to
doing
find
it.
the rhythm that this guy's created with the offense. I think you've got to leave him in there for a bunch of plays. And I know I know they're sucking a little bit of wind, but dude, these guys are professional athletes. I mean, seriously, anybody that's watched the soccer match knows if you're in shape, you're in shape. And right now, NFL players don't impress me with being in shape.
I think one thing that we're not taking into account here is how offenses now work packages.
You're
It's
right.
not, I don't think the whole lot of NFL offenses now decide, okay, well, we're going to run this package, but because this guy's got the hot hand right now, we're going to leave him in. They substitute packages.
You're
And
right.
if I'm going to question anything, I might question which package we're choosing to run, or maybe you choose a package with the guy who's got the hot hand. But the game keeps changing, right? You're going to have 2 guys. I think I'm hearing we all agree is Gibson isn't going to carry the load by himself, and McKissick's probably not going to carry the load by himself. You're going to have at least 2 guys, and you better have a third who can sub in, because nobody plays 16 games.
So can we talk about the good stuff from last night?
Here, hold on, time out real
Yeah.
quick. We'll talk about the good stuff. And then before we segue, I've got some good news that just came across my Twitter.
So I just think, and like I mentioned, Canadian Hogs, Studs and Duds thread. If you haven't checked that out on BG Obsession, that's a really good read. He does a great job with that. Although last night I think was a tough one to find some studs for, but I thought Landon Collins was unbelievable last night. And I also want to give props to, I thought DeAndre Carter, he almost broke another one last night. And I think he had like almost 70 return yards on. We only had 2 kickoffs that were not touchbacks.
The man
the
leads the NFL,
Carter-
right?
The Carter one came back too, didn't it?
Yes.
So
He
he had
leads the
70
NFL.
without that return.
He had 67 yards on 2 returns.
I wish they'd give him more reps on offense, though. I really do, because he just seems like he's one of those guys that makes things happen when the ball's in his
Yeah.
hands.
2
Well, Taylor
catches on
Heineke
3
started
targets
finding
last
him,
night.
right? Garrett Gilbert didn't know who he was, but Taylor does. Taylor knows who he is. He's getting the ball more.
The other thing that I think we should make note of in regards to talking about the good stuff, as you mentioned, John, I think we should be really, really thankful for the figurehead that we have leading this franchise right now in Ron Rivera. The guy has just dealt with obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in his short time here in Washington. And to me, last night was a very, very significant obstacle. The week was a complete train wreck with the COVID issue and all the challenges surrounding that. But the fact that the team showed up, the fact that he had those guys hanging in there and playing for one another and just, offering a united front. I think that is a real testament to the man that he is. I think it's a real testament to the leader that he is. And I think it's a real testament to the coach that he is as well. I can't imagine having anybody else thrown into that situation that he was thrown into last night and doing a better job than he did. I mean, the fact is it was a 3-point game with, I think, 8 minutes left. We should feel really, really good about where we're headed with Rivera. People are just going to have to accept that it's going to be a slow, methodical build towards something great. But I think by year 4 and year 5, I think we are going to reap the benefits of all the adversity that he's navigated this team through over the last couple of years. I firmly believe that.
Hard to
Amen.
argue with any of that, my friend.
And just to add to that, Paul, he was working with what, a third of his coaching staff out last night.
Seven
I mean, it wasn't
assistants.
just players, right? We were down a significant number of coaches. The defensive line coach wasn't there. The running back coach wasn't there. I think I heard somebody say the tight end coach wasn't there.
So last night was the first time in NFL history 2 female coaches led position groups as the primary coach. First time in NFL history. I thought that was pretty cool.
I knew
Very.
the gal that's the assistant running back coach led the running
Jennifer
backs. Who
King.
else?
Jennifer King, yeah.
Yeah, who was the other one though?
Phil, one of the Eagles coaches. I'm not sure who that was.
Oh, it
but-
was on the other sideline. All right. I was like, man, I didn't know we had 2 female coaches. Oh, we don't. So I feel better now. I was like, this is going to suck if I don't.
And apropos of nothing, how about those sleek benches on the visitor side last
Oh
night?
Jesus! I this is being
Sometimes,
Slater.
sometimes
Do
this
better.
team makes decisions that I just can't understand, and I'm not
This,
going to try.
this has to be Snyder. There's no way Rivera or Wright was involved in that, right? Please
Well,
tell me.
I think now that Dallas did it, and apparently did it because imagine at FedEx Field there was a problem with some of the equipment, and our heaters weren't working right. Dallas said, "Fuck it, we're bringing ours." And now that they've seen that you can do that, didn't several teams do that this week? It wasn't just us.
I heard the company that makes those benches is got a bunch of orders. So
Oh,
you may be
yeah.
right about that.
So I mean,
I just thought the last thing we need is any kind of artificial revving up of the Eagles in this week,
I just
and
think
I
that-
don't ever want to be I don't ever want to follow Dallas' lead. And
I think that's the NFL. I think you're going to see that every week now during the cold season. Anytime you go into a cold stadium, you're going to bring your benches to make sure they work.
Can we bring our own refs?
Everybody
what I
else does. I don't know
So,
why
all
we
right.
don't.
You know,
I'm gonna.
we're talking about the good.
Uh-huh.
I actually want to mention a couple of the guys on the defense. Jamin Davis may have had his biggest game last night. He had 5 solo tackles. He was in on 10. And how about that sack by John Allen? That was not just
Yeah.
That was
I
that was
mean,
a
while
man
getting
sack
blocked,
is what that
he
was.
reached out with one arm and
he's got
sacked
the
him while he was
offensive
getting
lineman. He's got the offensive lineman with his left arm, and he reaches out and grabs Jalen Hurts with his right arm
by the
and
jersey and just
Yeah.
holds him.
and just pulls him straight to the ground.
That was grown man stuff right there. is what that was.
That was
I saw at least 3 uncalled John Allen holds
Uh-huh.
My
from
guess is that happens every
70
week.
yards away. It was like a downfield shot, and you could see him being held, and they didn't call him. I don't know what that guy has to do to get a flag on when he's held, but
Oh, that's
All
a
right.
man, right? 8.5 sacks from the interior like that.
And I know everybody's going to remember Reeves for the long play with Goddard, but the dude led the team in tackles last night.
Who, Reeves?
Reeves.
I
You know,
like
he-
I said, I give Reeves credit. He was in perfect position. He had a funky jump. If you
He
watch it,
actually had-
he healed it and he didn't get elevated. If he
And
gets
that
elevated,
that touchdown at the very end was just a brilliant play by the receiver. I mean, he's all over it. It's just a brilliant pass and catch.
I
He
like
had a
Reeves.
pretty solid game. He got shredded on Twitter, and I'll be damned if the man didn't stand up and go, "I had a bad
Yep.
game."
yeah,
And I
he
want to
said
go,
he played that
dude,
shit.
you didn't have a bad game.
Yeah, I
Fans
saw
don't
that.
have a clue what they're watching.
Yeah, he owned it. He
did.
owned something I don't even think he needed to own.
I don't
Exactly.
think so either.
Tell you what, you don't want your cornerbacks being your leading tacklers, though. That's a problem.
Correct. So perfect segue into the good news that just came across my Twitter, and I figure I'll share it live and in person on this podcast.
We just
John
re-signed
Co-
LeVar Arrington.
No. John Keim, Washington Pro Bowlers just got announced.
Ooh.
Wide receiver Terry McLaurin, 5th alternate. I'm going ascending. Okay, so
Fifth alternate.
which is ridiculous.
well, if we had stability at the quarterback position, I guarantee you it's higher.
Yeah, he
Fair
hasn't put
enough.
up great numbers for the last 4
No, I
weeks.
get it, but
Returner DeAndre Carter, fourth alternate, but I think he goes in as a wide receiver. I don't think he goes in as special teams, which is why he's fourth alternate. Running back Antonio Gibson, fourth alternate. This is the name that jumped off the page at me. Long snapper Cameron Cheeseman, third alternate.
The cheese is in the house. I
This
love
guy,
it.
we roasted the team for drafting this guy, spending the draft on this guy, and now you
Who's
don't
we?
hear his name.
Who's we? I didn't
Well,
roast him. I loved it.
As fans, the team got
it was,
roasted
it
for
was a
drafting.
good draft pick, is what Mark said.
You get out of here.
And we don't have to, cut him.
That's right. Tressway,
Cut the
punter,
cheese.
second alternate. And then here we get Brandon Sheriff as a starter
Okay.
and big old 93 defensive tackle John Allen is starting for the NFC in the Pro Bowl.
Well, there's justice. I like it. I like it. And I don't hate on Sheriff as much as some people do. His peers think he's a stud, and the
He
guys he
is,
plays
when he's on-
against vote him.
He's
The guys
a
he
stud.
plays-
He just can't remember the snap count to it.
The guys he plays
But other than that-
against think he's one of the best in football. That means something to me.
You
He
know,
is
Fletcher
when he's
Cox
on
was
the field.
thrilled to be facing Sadiq Charles last night instead of Sheriff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's a big deal. And that kind of exposes Cosme too, right? He doesn't have
It
Sheriff
does.
there to protect him and help out the rookie. So
Well, think about that side of the line. So from the center out, we were playing our fourth center,
thank you.
our third string, because Schweitzer was out too, right? Normally that would have been Schweitzer in for Sheriff. So we're playing our third string right guard. We were playing our first string right tackle, but he was back for the first time in how many weeks and coming off a positive COVID test.
And oh yeah, he's a rookie.
And he's a rookie.
I would love to know how many different combinations on the O-line we've had this season, because it's got to be crazy. It's got to be like
I don't know what it is now, but like 3 games ago, they said something about 12 or 13 different combinations and 8 different starting combinations.
Yeah.
Largely
I might have
because
to
of
get a
that
John
rotating
Allen jersey.
center position, right? I mean, I don't think anybody but Rolliers played more than 2 games as a starter at center.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems like a lot of Pro Bowl nominations for Washington in a year where we're probably not going to make the playoffs. Am I wrong on that? I mean,
do they even
it's kind of
send-
encouraging.
Yeah, but
That
we're
we have a-
talking we're talking pretty deep in the alternate.
I mean, do
Well,
they
yeah.
even send fifth alternates? I guess they have to have them if everybody else ahead of them, pops positive for COVID before.
Well,
the game.
and whoever's playing in the Super Bowl, there's that what I
Yeah,
mean. Chances are
which won't be us.
chances
Oh,
are
wait,
2 or
did
3
I say
wide
that?
receivers are going to drop.
Mm.
And I think you can easily make a case for a tremendous amount of mediocrity in the NFL this year. There aren't a lot of just scary dominant players right now. If you look
Or
around,
parity. Parity
Yeah.
is another word we could
You're,
throw out
well,
there.
and yeah, I mean, you look at the teams, but I mean, this year more than any other, I read an article about it, whether or not it's blowing up fantasy football, and I think it was absolutely right. I mean, and even since that article was written, that article was talking about how many studs and dogs are there in the NFL. Just look at the NFC. At that point in time, they were calling the Cardinals the only stud in the conference,
And they just
and the Lions the only dog in the conference. Well, the
The
dog
stud
in the
lost to the
conference took the
dog.
stud in the conference to the woodshed
And-
on Sunday.
and hey, and don't hold your breath. Arizona could tailspin right now. They
Mm-hmm.
could drop 2 of the next 3 easy.
And I don't see an unbeatable team in the NFC. Honestly, right now, I don't see an unbeatable team in the NFL.
No, there's no monsters as of this week. I agree with that. Everyone's got warts.
This may be one of the most wide open postseasons we've ever seen.
The Rams look like a team of destiny to me. I don't know.
They
But
did. I'm
I
not sure
picked
they
the
do
Bills
now.
to go to the Super Bowl and win it, and they're not exactly lighting it up. But the Rams look like they're having one of those seasons where all the big games are going to win. But we'll see.
Well, who's having a sneaky good season?
New England.
Big Bill Belichick up there in New England. That's
Well,
exactly.
we'll
where
see
I
what
was going.
happens once Mac Jones has to actually carry them. He hasn't really had to do that in
Not this
big
year.
games yet.
And
So we'll see.
Yet they lost this weekend, didn't
They did.
they? Yeah.
I'm deeply impressed with what he's done with that team. He's got a great defense. Not surprising, it's Bill Belichick,
offense.
and he's got enough offense and a rookie quarterback who doesn't fuck it up.
Right. And he's using them. They're setting
he's
them up
been-
for success. So
One-
Yeah, that rookie quarterback doesn't look like a rookie quarterback most games.
Well, I keep meaning to look it up. Has an NFL team won with 3 attempted passes in the modern era? I mean, they did, right? They went up to Buffalo and won with their quarterback throwing 3.
I'm sure I'm
passes.
sure the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible that happened. And this last week, he needed to come through in the end. And when they got some heat on the man towards the end, he looked like a rookie quarterback to me. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like up in Kansas City in January.
So I know it feels like our season, it felt to me like our season was done last night, but our season is not really over. If we could pull out a 3-game run here, we have a pretty good chance of being a playoff team. We're basically up against the Saints, the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Vikings. We have a little bit of an edge up on them, if assuming that we finish with the same record. If we got to 9 and 8, 4 of our losses have been against AFC opponents. So if it gets to those other tiebreakers, we could be the 7th or even the 6th seed. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but we have to get past Dallas, obviously, first. We have to get some of these guys back on a short week, and we have to get past Dallas, which I think is a tall order. But it's not impossible.
I meant to ask you guys this before we move on. I'm sorry. I think if Taylor Heineke starts and he's healthy last night, I think we win that game.
I do too.
I think if
Yeah.
I that's a different ball game. But before we move on, we also have to, in the same conversation, we have to admit the fact that Dallas Goedert dropped 2 footballs he never drops. One of them got picked off, and the other one was a 3rd down. That as many ifs and buts aside, if we did all this, if players on Philly don't beat themselves, because how many holding penalties and boneheaded weird stuff where they were beating themselves in the first half. We just didn't take advantage of it.
Which is why I think if we have our quarterback, we're not going 5 straight drives, putting up a total of 34 yards in the middle of the game and exposing that defense.
I think Philadelphia has to play us more honest, right? If Heineke is starting that game, because Heineke's going to hit some of those balls.
And he's going to run. He's going to take off and make plays.
That's true. Yeah, he's also going to run, but he's going to hit some of those guys that are open that Gilbert overthrew or underthrew or
Well, he probably hits McLaurin to convert that 3rd down.
Right. He's not a beat late waiting. And that's not that's not on Gilbert, right? He doesn't know. But no, yeah, Heineke doesn't wait. And neither does Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen knows how to run the offense.
All right.
Too.
So a question, we alluded to it. There's somebody joked about it, and I'm not suggesting big money long-term contract, but what do you do now? What do you do this week when you're 1 and 2 come back? Do you keep Gilbert on the roster and demote everybody else to practice? Do you cut somebody and keep Gilbert? Do you give Gilbert a contract for next year?
I mean, I don't think he warrants a contract for next year based on what I saw last night. But if you think he's a better quarterback than the guys you have on your roster, then why the hell wasn't he on your roster to begin with? I mean, he was sitting there. It could have been had at any time this season. So,
he was on.
He was on New England's practice squad.
Right. So you have to sign him to your active roster.
But that's the point, is if he's better than Allen or Heineke, then he would have been on our active roster.
Right. And he's not better than Allen or Heineke.
I'm thinking better than number 3,
but he's got to be right. He's got to be on the active roster, right? At least for this game. I don't know what happens with him now, but
here's what I know is if we lose, here's what I do. Gilbert's on the roster now. We're paying him, right? He's under contract. Shermer and Tomu are not. I keep Gilbert, and if we lose next week, Gilbert plays either week 16 or week 17. Heineke's not 100%. And I'm not saying, look, I said if we lose.
Hi.
I don't play him. I play Allen if Heineke's not available.
Gilbert's a known quantity, man. The guy's been on like 8 different NFL rosters.
There's a reason.
He's played less regular season start games than Allen has.
Well, there's
Well,
a
that's 'cause he
reason.
can't make a roster.
Right.
Well,
There's
that's
a
true.
reason
I mean,
he's
it's not
been
in a
on.
vacuum.
Okay, let me rephrase that. And I'm not
I can't
saying
believe we're having this
okay.
conversation.
Look, I am not
Really?
sold on Gilbert. I said if we lose next, okay, whoever you want to look at, take a look at him. Gilbert didn't show me enough to make me believe that he's anything more than what we would get in the draft.
No, I don't think so either.
So no, I'm not signing him to a long-term deal. I said if he's on the roster, and if you want to take a flyer on him and take a look at him, if he has a couple good practices and you want to see him take a couple snaps, see what. But even then, we're only talking 3 weeks into the season. Even if he was to play next week, we're only talking about a week and a half. No, so to answer your question, Mark, you don't do anything. I hate to sound cold. He served his purpose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a reason that he was available.
I would have preferred
in
we
week
see
14 or
honestly, I would have
whatever.
preferred we see Tamu in that game. I think he brings a different element. I think he can run better.
Could
So
have brought in RG3 and let him run the read option.
Okay, I mocked it. I know how we
Oh,
all
my-
feel about RG3, but RG3 gives us a better chance to win last night than Gilbert. I
That
think so.
You-
I
that
really
would be a
do.
whole podcast, John.
I don't agree with that. I
You
don't
better
agree with
save
that.
that one for the off season.
Huntley, give me Huntley. That's the person to look at that came out of Baltimore. I might talk to Baltimore about a trade this offseason for Huntley. That guy can play.
I can see that.
If you want to, he's better than anybody in the draft.
We don't
Anyway.
know that, man. We don't know. We know college draft every year. 2 or 3 of those guys turned out to be really good, and everyone thought they sucked, like Mac. This past draft, everyone said he was
Well,
overrated.
I give a lot of Max. I give a lot of Max abilities and what he's shown. I put a lot of that on Bill Belichick's shoulders. Look, everybody wants to say Brady versus Belichick. Who's better? One couldn't have the look. Belichick had his hand in Brady becoming Brady. You know what I mean? And I think we're seeing that. And I'm not saying he's going to win 7 championships, but we're seeing once again what Belichick can do. Literally catering 52 other players to get to the strengths of the most important one. That's a quarterback, you know, and I wouldn't believe for a second that he didn't do the same thing with Brady when Brady was in his rookie and second season. So
He's a pretty good coach. I think he's going to do okay in this league.
yeah. All right. Do you guys even want to take 10 minutes and talk about Dallas, or we just did it and we can just
We
say
are
F
going to
Dallas?
we're going to kick their ass. That's what's going to happen. We're
So
bringing Tony Robinson and Ed Rubert out. And
So
we
who
all
are we
know
going to
who they
have
were,
back?
right?
That's the first question. Who are we?
By the
gonna have-
way, can I go on record and say for every Philly fan that was bitching about the game getting moved to Tuesday, because they're going to only have 5 days before they play the Giants. We only have 5 days before we play in Dallas, you schmucks.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty.
don't
Yeah,
even
oh
act
yeah.
like
And
you
by the way, they had their team on the field last night. Oh,
so
Anyways,
you know, kind of a tie-in from last night into next week. Landon Collins, DNP today. Antonio Gibson, DNP today. William Jackson III, DNP. Daniel Wise, DNP. Limited.
all got injured,
Jamin
but
Davis, Curtis
Samuel.
Samuel, Smith
Smith
Williams. Full practice, Adam Humphries, even with rotten ribs. Okay, I got to tell you that to me is just ugly tough, because ribs are bad news, man. You know he's hurting.
well, I wonder, and look, all of them got nicked up during the game, but I wonder honestly how much of that is the team saying we're literally playing again in 4 days. You guys just
Take a
It
break.
might
sit down.
be.
You know what I mean? There's no point in getting you guys
The
out
best-
here running around.
The best news is that Tony Pollard is still banged up, and Elliott is full. He practiced today, but I think both the running backs are still banged up a little bit. That's the only good news, and otherwise Dallas is pretty.
I didn't watch
Relatively.
Dallas play the Giants. Is he running and mobile again? Because I don't know if
No.
anybody noticed last night, but mobile quarterbacks keep giving us problems.
Look, I was in chat. I was screaming in chat.
That's hard to do.
I was
All
screaming
caps.
You went
all
all
caps. If you and I hope we look at the film every time we brought middle pressure on Dak. even if we didn't, or every time we showed middle pressure on Dak, even if we didn't bring it, he panicked. He had a 9.9 QBR against us. The defense won that football game. That team is beatable. That offense is beatable. So if you guys, I don't know who wants to do it. If you want to go back and watch us play them, every time we came through the A gap, either on a blitz or we got middle pressure, he panicked. He tried to run. He's still off. And now 2 weeks later, it might be a little bit different. But when we played them last weekend, I hope we bring it every play. There's somebody in the A gap, even if they bail, because every time he did it, you could see it to a T. On a bubble screen to Lamb, we had somebody in the middle, and that's a play. He was in shotgun. He doesn't even have to drop back. It's catch the ball and throw it. So there's no blitz pressure there, and he still panicked, and it was a terrible throw.
We played them well on defense. That's not why we lost that game. We lost that game because we couldn't move the ball, and we couldn't move it. Our offense didn't show up.
If Micah Parsons comes out and does the same kind of stuff to us Sunday night that he did to us 9 days ago, I'm sorry, I'm losing. Paul, I'm going to rag on your boy. Ron Rivera is going to lose something in my eyes for not having done anything about Scott Turner. I'm sorry. You've got to game plan for Micah Parsons. It's like not game planning for Lawrence Taylor. It's like not game planning for oh my gosh, name any great defensive player in the history. The kid may very well win rookie defensive player of the year and defensive player of the year. And as much as it hurts me to say it, if I were casting a vote, I think I would probably have to vote for him in both categories. And to me, it just didn't look like we were aware of where he was and what he could do. Granted, I know it's the first time we've seen he and Lawrence and Gregory on the field together. That's the league's first tape of those three guys all playing at the same time. But you can't pay attention to, you know what Gregory and Lawrence can do. You got to have a guy on Parsons.
Well, I got a couple of thoughts for you. One, they will game plan for him. The question is going to be whether it's effective. I mean, LT used to beat double teams all the time.
You're right.
The other thing
happens, well, to Bob's credit, if that happens, it happens. Like,
yeah, I mean, if he beats you, but we will try. Some of us are old enough to remember the first time we faced Herschel Walker with the Cowboys back in the day. He went off, he had 200 yards from scrimmage or something and 19 touchdowns. And oh my God. And the second time we played him, he didn't do squat because we adjusted and they took him out of it. So I'd like to think that we will adjust for Micah and try to do something, but the other guys are pretty good too.
At that time, we also had one of the best one of the best coaches in history calling the plays.
Richie.
So this is a classic trap game, man. If you look at it, they just stumped us. They just humiliated us in our home stadium with their benches in tow. They just thumped the Giants. We have a decimated roster and we have 4 days to prepare for them. So this is a classic setup for they don't show up.
And they're at home.
So if we can find a way to show up, we have a chance in this game. And I'm gonna make everything contingent on, we're assuming Gilbert Grape was a 1 week drink that we had to scarf down.
Very nice.
If we don't get Allen or Heineke back, we're in trouble. But if we do get one of those two guys back, then this might be more of a competitive contest than we're thinking.
Hey, John, that was really poetic. You should think about writing a regular blog, man.
And over and above that as well, John, in terms of what you just said for trap game, if I'm not mistaken, I was looking at schedules a bit earlier today. I believe Dallas has Arizona the week after this. So, could be one of those situations where, they got their mindset on Arizona, as that can have some implications for seeding in the conference and, potentially taking us slightly works to our advantage. But you guys are talking about adjustments as well. And obviously adjustments are going to be a really key piece for our team in terms of our compete level and our ability to go toe to toe with Dallas. One of the things that we're desperately going to have to figure out this coming Sunday is how to get Terry McLaurin more involved in the game. It's something that I believe has not been talked about enough this season, just because of the fact that we all love the guy. He's a fantastic player. He's a phenomenal talent. But the fact is, the guy has been held to under 65 yards receiving this year on 10 occasions. I was absolutely blindsided when I saw that. Last time we played Dallas, he did not have a single receiving yard. Granted, he went out with injury that game. But, you know, I know a huge factor in all of this is the idea that he has absolutely no help around him. So teams are just completely eliminating him, you know, fairly easily at this point. But we got to figure out a way to get the guy the ball more often, because it's becoming too much of a trend and pattern in the second half of the season right now.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah,
so
he
hard
shouldn't
to,
be fifth alternate, you know, he just shouldn't be.
it's
he
so
should
hard to determine how much of his production is defensive adjustments, his ability versus the ability of the quarterback to get him the ball. And as he gets more and more coverage on him, you know, he can still beat double coverage. The great ones do, but not with, you need to have a quarterback who can fit it into tight spots to do that. I'd love to see what Terry
Or hit
can
him in
do.
stride, on
Yeah.
his sweep pattern.
I mean,
Not
a guy
throw it
like,
in triple coverage.
we talked about Matt Stafford a few times over the year. Think how different Terry McLaurin's year might have been if Matt Stafford was the quarterback.
Yeah.
So I just want to touch something. McLaurin's targets. I won't go completely down, but in the first 7 weeks of the season, he had double-digit targets 4 of those 7 weeks, and they were all losses. Well, 2 wins. Since then, he's had 7, 8, 7, 7, and then 5. And the 8, 7, 7, 5 were victories. And then in the last 2 weeks, it's been 3 targets and 4 targets.
It's
Get
another
more targets.
factor, right? One of the things that we were praising the offense so much about and Heineke is how much he moved the ball around. He's getting the ball to 8 different guys, right? He's not focusing on one. I don't know what that means,
McLaurin-
but I thought I'd throw it out there.
Well, I think it's a good point that just the numbers don't always tell the full tale, but I do think it's what Paul said, that lack of a real legitimate number 2 and number 3 target, like a real threat, like Samuel was supposed to be this year.
Like Logan Thomas was
Logan
briefly.
Thomas, I was going to say, Logan Thomas, if he takes over the middle of the field, the outside gets a lot softer.
Mhm.
That safety can't bail out and play outside the hash marks.
All that said, Paul, I'd be fine if they targeted him 13 times on Sunday.
And that's what I don't get. When we played against Dallas, we targeted him 3 times. One was a YOLO ball that ended up getting him concussed. That we've already talked about that Heineke should never have thrown, because he had 2 better options for easy gimme first downs on that play. But he ate Trevon Diggs' lunch last year twice. If
He
you
didn't
remember
eat his
correctly.
lunch last week ago or 10 days ago.
And you know, just FYI, you guys are talking about, you know, maybe this is a trap game and Dallas is overly. I'm not hearing anybody down here talking about that, because Dallas doesn't feel like they went into Washington and thumped us a week
They
ago.
were scared.
They did, exactly. And every Dallas fan I'm talking to said they sat on the edge of their seat until the guys started taking the victory formation. They figured Dallas was going to find a way to lose that game. They all sounded like we sound. You know, it was really funny. I've listened to a lot of Cowboy fans in the last 9 days, and they all sound, they could be Washington fans if you just change the nouns in the sentence. You know, they're like, I knew we were going to find a way to lose that game. We were just, you know, we played great. But we let you guys hang around it was written in the stars, and then we pulled it out, and I don't know how we did it. I'm scared about the game in a week. I heard it from my in-laws today, dropping my kids off for Christmas. I mean, my mother-in-law was like, oh my gosh, we played horrible. And I'm sitting there thinking, did you watch the game I watched? Because for
Their
3.5
offense played horrible.
quarters, you didn't play horrible.
You know, their defense played lights out against us. If they play like that again, we in trouble.
Yeah.
There's one cardinal difference in this game, setting aside everything else, and that's Dallas does not have to win on Sunday. If we don't win on Sunday, our season is officially over. It's
No.
not
Well,
mathematically over, but it is officially over.
here's
So
the other thing.
it's a wild card playoff game for us.
Here's the other X
Heineke.
factor is if there is one thing in the knock on wood, Heineke plays. If there's one thing we've learned from Heineke so far, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, is that he doesn't make the same mistake twice. So you start to wonder if he takes it upon himself to find Micah Parsons. You know what I'm saying? And he takes it upon himself to understand where Gregory's going to be, because it bit him the last time they played. That might have been the worst game he's had this season.
Yeah, if he can't be throwing those 20-yard lollipops into triple coverage over the middle of the field. I
Right.
think I'd like to see, assuming Taylor plays and he's right, that he kind of goes into this one with the mentality he had against Tampa Bay in the playoffs last year. This is it, man. Leave it all on the field, attack, run, put your body on the line, because this is it for the season.
This is the game you go for it on every fourth down and you try an onside kick at some point.
We
or
got
you
nothing to lose.
Right. We have to win the game. If we don't win, we're done.
So Jonathan Allen came out with another quote at post game yesterday that just tells me I need to buy this man's jersey. And I quote, "We get paid to handle adversity. We can bitch and moan about COVID, but nobody cares."
He's right. He's 100%
He is
right.
And that's
He's
Ron
absolutely
Rivera.
right.
That's an echo of Ron Rivera. And that's one thing I do agree with Paul, that Rivera, the one thing you'll never hear Rivera say is dwelling on the negative stuff. Is like, he'll get asked stuff in press conferences and he always says the same thing, which is like, all that's true, but we got a game on Sunday. We don't have the, we don't have the luxury of complaining or whatever. We got to get ready for the Cowboys or whoever it is. And I think you hear the same thing from guys like Allen.
It's going to be a lot of what ifs this year, right? What if this game had been playing with us at relative full strength? I think we're 7-7 heading down to Dallas. I really do. I don't think we would have lost that game last night, but we got one this weekend. What do we think is going to happen? Time to put it on the record.
If we get Heineke or Kyle Allen back, I think we find a way to win for the reasons I've already stated. So I won't restate them. I just think Dallas doesn't have to win. They're in good shape. I think I respect what Bob said, but the players, I think, feel like they handled us in our home stadium, and they're not going to be, I don't think they're particularly intimidated by us. So if we can get a legitimate quarterback, no offense to Mr. Gilbert, back, then we have a chance. So I'm gonna give us a 1 point time expiring field goal win, like 24-23.
I don't
I don't really believe it,
that.
but I'm saying it.
Go ahead, Paul. Tee it off, brother. What's up?
Well, if there's one thing we've learned under Rivera, it's that this team is not going to go down without a fight. I think ultimately, if we have, some key pieces back in the lineup on Sunday, I don't think we're going to roll over and play dead. That would be very uncharacteristic of this team. So I do think we give them a game, but ultimately, I think we just fall a little short. In the end, I think it's a really tough asking this team to walk in there on 4 or 5 days of rest, and to expect any sort of miracle. But I think we're going to play them really, really tight. Ultimately, if we don't get off to a bad start, I think that plays more into our favor. Obviously, last time we played them, we got derailed by that horrendous start to the game. But I think it's going to be Dallas's day. 26-23 Cowboys.
Mark?
I think they're of all the 4 units in the game, our offense, their offense, our defense, their defense. I think clearly the strongest unit is Dallas's defense right now. They shut us down 2 weeks ago. They shut the Giants down in New York this week. I don't really see that changing. They're healthy. They're coming on. They're going to be playing with confidence. We don't have McKissick. I'd like this game a lot better with McKissick and Thomas to give Taylor some options. I think if we're going to win, it's going to be because Taylor plays out of his mind, hair on fire, makes plays with his legs. We get some breaks. I agree with Paul. I think we'll be in it. I think we'll play hard. I don't think anybody will be able to complain about the effort. I don't know that we've got playmakers. I don't know what we're going to have on defense. How's our secondary going to look with Jackson? Is Collins going to be, what kind of speed is he? I think we're still going to be shorthanded even with our quarterback. I think Dallas
Fuller's still out too, right? Because he's unvaccinated. I don't think he's eligible to return.
Yeah. I don't know that, but I that sounds right. I think it all adds up to just not having quite enough pieces and like playing against a really good team, playing confidently, at least a really good defensive team playing confidently. I think it's a little bit too much. I think I think it's a good game, and then they pull away late and maybe beat us like 27-17 feels about right to me.
Bob, you want to go or you want me to toss it up?
Let me go last, man.
All right. I have no reason to believe that we're going to find a way to win this game because I just feel like it's been too much. This team has met more obstacles and more adversity over the last 18 months than any team that should even be in contention. You know what I mean?
For the second year in a row. That's 2 years in a row. You could argue we've had more.
It's on the field, and it's on the field, and it's not just off the field. It's on the field, and arguably speaking, we are the most stable off the field as we've been in the last 20 years. You know, there's no Bruce Allen drama.
That is a low bar, but your point is well taken.
There's no Vinny Serrato drama. The biggest drama we have now is that our owner. The biggest drama we have now is our owner shipping benches to the opposing field. You know, like. And yes, we have the harassment and all that, but that's
a little harassment.
No, what I mean by that is you're not talking about a game day distraction when you talk about that. You know what I'm saying? You're talking that's
it's history. Yeah,
it is. Well, it's not history. It's actually very relevant right now, but it's not a game day distraction. How many times on game day did we find or were we getting Shanahan leakage, you know, that the people are unhappy and that there was an argument, and you know that had a direct impact on the field because it was off the field. We don't see that. How many we heard Robert Griffin and Kirk Cousins didn't like each other, but whatever. I feel like it's insurmountable. I can't bring myself to believe that this team can find a way, and that's nothing to do with the guys that are on the field. It is just too much. We still have double-digit players on COVID. If we get them back, how can you convince me it's different than it was last week? You know, we're going to face the same uphill battle. You know, hopefully you have Settle, you have Smith Williams. Hopefully Wise is okay. I think a lot of the reason we lost to Philly was because our front four was really good in the first quarter. And then they got gassed because there was nobody to spell them. So that could be a factor.
I think Casey Toohill is still backpedaling. He got run 15 yards downfield on a couple of plays, that poor guy.
So I wonder if and we're 5 days removed from another game. And and we're traveling again. So I feel like it's not going to be fun to watch, and I hate to say that because I want to hope, but I feel like it's going to be like 31-20 Dallas. It's just going to be ugly, and I hope I'll be sitting here watching the game, rooting and cheering as hard as I possibly can to be wrong with that. I just can't go away from that. It kills me to say that, but
it's not an unreasonable way to think of it.
What do you got, Bob?
One thing I haven't heard anybody mention is that Dallas is in contention for the top seed in a bye week. Green Bay has Cleveland this week. Not an easy game. right? Cleveland's actually playing some pretty good. Cleveland's playing the kind of football that we watched Washington play for 4 weeks very successfully. And I think we've all agreed at various and sundry points in time that if we'd played the way against Green Bay that we played against the 4 teams that followed Green Bay, we'd have beaten Green Bay, right? Cleveland plays that kind of game. Dallas will know whether or not Green Bay wins or loses by the time we kick off Sunday night.
Same thing with Arizona.
I think we feel good about the way this game goes, but we lose it. But I think we feel good about it because Dallas never really gets out. Dallas never has to get out of second gear. I think Heineke plays a really good game. I think the Washington offense plays a better game than we played a week ago. But 5 days over Christmas, traveling on Christmas. I'm sorry, that's a bummer. I don't care who you are. That's a downer, man. You got it. You know, you have Christmas morning with the family. You get up, you get on an airplane, you leave.
And then you got, of all places, Dallas.
You know,
it'd be nice to travel to Hawaii on Christmas.
I have a little bit of experience with that from the family perspective, right? My dad was an airline pilot. There were a lot of Christmases when I was a kid that we opened packages and Dad left for work, and it was tough. I mean, I realize that sounds, I don't know, soft, but Christmas is one of those days the family's supposed to be together. And for these guys that have wives and kids, this is not an easy thing to have to.
Hold on, Bob. Hey, Bob, being Sunday night though, maybe they fly down Sunday morning.
No, they won't fly down the day of the game. They'll fly down the night before. This team's tired, man. They can't afford to get off an airplane and go try and play a game. That's a
Bob,
3-hour flight.
Maybe they'll take the pain of being separated from their families on Christmas and be
As
really
anger.
pissed.
Maybe. And I think to a certain degree the team plays mad, Mark. I think that's a legit thing, right? The team got embarrassed for at least the first half last week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anytime you go into halftime 24-0, you got your ass kicked. I don't care how you look at that. That's an ass kicking. And for a grown professional like John Allen, that's tough to swallow, man. I think John Allen comes out like a man possessed Sunday night, and maybe Dallas doesn't know what to do with him any more than we know what to do with Micah Parsons. The problem is I think they have more playmakers than we do at the end of the day. And I just don't feel like it's going to matter. I think the score is going to be closer than the game ever really feels like, but I think we feel good about the way our team played. And at the end of the day, I think we lose 24-17. And we sit here next week and look at each other and go, guys played really well, but that probably should have been, 35-10 because Dallas really didn't turn it on. And I don't think they're absolutely going to have to turn it on. I think they just stay focused for 4 quarters because they've got a job to do and they know they've got a job to do. And if they take their eye off of it, what happened last week could happen this next week. And they don't want to be embarrassed in front of the home fans. So.
Well, so yeah, I think we all think when this is kind of interesting to me, right? As bad as it's been for the last 74 years around here, nobody thinks that we're going to just not show up. If Rivera has done nothing in 2 years, he has managed to convince me, and it sounds like most of us, the team's going to show up and play and acquit themselves professionally. They're just shorthanded.
I think this is the first time that we're only one of us is predicting a win, though.
But
And
thank you for doing it.
I'm not sure I believe it, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to what I said before, which is we have to win. It's not about like home field advantage or what. We have to win or the season is over.
I pray, I hope and pray you're right, brother. I do, honestly. And
all week we're going to be watching the reports, right, for who's coming off the protocol and who's playing. And
I've been refreshing Twitter.
Hopefully we're done putting people on the protocol.
Yeah.
It looks like it's settled out. They just made an announcement also that all of Rivera's post-game pressers are going to be done virtually. So I think they're starting to disconnect from all of that to hopefully try to isolate. But I don't think we put anybody on the list in the last 2 days, right? Or am I forgetting something?
No, I don't think so either.
Not that I've
So-
heard.
I just want to point out that normally we would be obsessing that it's a night game on national TV. And there are so many other reasons why we can't win the game. We're not even worried about that anymore.
Well, and
No,
that says something, if to be serious, that says something about the culture Rivera's putting in too, right? Well, I'm
Yep.
not afraid of a national game anymore.
We've won a couple of night games under,
Mhm.
under,
Yeah.
you know, in the last 2 years. We've won a couple of games that we weren't picked to win.
Yep.
And the guys came out and did a great job. They played great football. I fully expect them to play great football this week. It's not just Rivera. You know, guys like John Allen and Terry McLaurin and Tyler Heineke, they are not going to let the rest of the team wallow in this. I mean, you know, we're already seeing manly quotes, right? Leader-like quotes from guys coming out of this locker room. That quote by Allen that somebody referenced earlier is brilliant, man. Nobody cares. You can point to COVID. You can look at the end. Nobody cares. Did you win? Did you win?
I was actually talking to my dad about this earlier. He's a big time Redskins fan, and it was part of the reason why I'm a Redskins fan. And we were talking about because the disconnect that Jacksonville had with Urban Meyer, you know, because they cut that cord less than 1 year into a 10-year contract, and he lost his locker room. And I said, it's kind of funny to look at the difference between college and professionals, because the guy that's you're trying to tell them what to do is making 10 times what you're making, you know, and so that becomes a part of the conversation. Well, guess what the X factor is there? A guy like John Allen grabbing you by your face mask and telling you shut the F up at practice and get to work, you know. That's where it changes. And I think that culturally we haven't had that in a long time. You know, we've had guys like Trent Williams, who is respected by the league, who's believed to be one of the best of his position. But guess what? Trent Williams before last year was one dope positive away from being suspended for a year, you know?
Yep.
So I think culturally we're in a different place than we've been for a long time. And I'm not going to, I love to dwell, you know, look back at history. I'm not going to try to compare this to previous locker rooms, but this is different. This is a much different locker room. And I hope we lock up McLaurin this year, because I don't think he's even eligible for an extension until this offseason, based on his draft status, and lock up some of these guys like Carter, lock up some of the, you know, longer term guys that are cultural guys, the guys that just want to work. Carter
Hey,
gets mad when he can't return a kick. I love that.
I saw Landon Collins comment this week, or maybe it was late last week, that he would love to re-sign here if we love him and he, you know, in his existing role. And I think that's kind of a big deal, because
Yeah, 5 weeks ago we were
he
hearing
could
how
be
he
like
didn't want
every
to play
other
it.
player who's being asked to do something he doesn't want to do and demand to be traded
Right.
and all the rest of that. So I thought that was kind
Well,
of
he-
cool.
I think he's a $26 million cap hit next year. So chances are he's not wearing our jersey next year under that contract. All right, boys. It's been an absolute blast as always.
Welcome
Or-
back, Paul. We missed you last week.
Yeah,
Yes, we
brother.
did.
Thank you. I missed you guys as well.
All right.
Night, guys.
Night, boys.
All right, boys.